All right, Leandra.
Yes.
Leandra, where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally?
I grew up in Chino, California. I was born in Oregon, but my parents moved down when I was about 3, so Chino.
Tell me about your parents, your family.
I'm the oldest of 4 siblings, so we're all 2 years apart. And then I was also homeschooled growing up, so that was different than most people, I guess. I think my mom thought that by homeschooling me that I would turn out a certain way, like Little House on the Prairie kind of stuff. But I came out very, very me, like very strong personality. So that didn't happen. And then when I was about 9 to 11, I can't remember exactly when, but my dad started drinking. He became really abusive. So just being berated every night, tell what's wrong with you, and just verbal and some physical abuse. And that obviously made me go much darker, much more depressed. And I think that threw my mom off a lot more. Yeah.
What kind of kid were you in high school?
Huh?
What kind of kid were you in high school? Or high school years, I guess.
High school years, I was sad. Yeah, I was really depressed. Mostly because of the abuse. It lasted for years, so it just left me feeling like there's something deeply wrong with me.
Is that when it kicked in, kind of as a teenager?
Yeah, I would say, well, I think it really kicked in at 12, because that was when I started self-harming. So I started cutting when I was 12, and that lasted all the way through when I was 17. I did that a lot. It's like an addiction. It's really weird. I couldn't stop doing it, you know? And then
And there was no abuse, sexual abuse, anything like that in your childhood?
there was outside of my family. So I was molested when I was about 5 or 6, but it was a person outside of my immediate family. And that was really dark. Just interesting, because I've diagnosed OCD, and OCD makes you feel a lot of really, really heavy shame, unbearable shame. And I remember when I was trying to figure out what was going on with me, the only shame that I could remember having felt that was as bad as OCD was after I got molested, and I didn't know what to do about it. Because I just remember, as a child, I guess depression started earlier than I thought, because, as a child, I went into, a dark depression, and my mom was she just kept asking me every night, she's like, what's wrong, what's wrong? And I didn't know how to verbalize it, because I didn't really know what was happening. So, but, I mean, to her credit, she didn't stop asking until I was able to tell her everything. And it's not even I didn't want to tell her, I just didn't know how, And then she was able to be it's not your fault, all that, you didn't do anything wrong. And then that was wrapped up, it didn't haunt me too bad, I didn't even realize what had happened until I was 19, actually. And then I went to therapy, and my therapist was like, were you ever molested? And I was like, nah. I was like, this weird thing happened once. And she was like, well, that's being molested. And I was like, oh shit. I guess I was. Oops.
And the emotions you're going through typically are depression?
Yeah, I mean, regarding that, or
just in general?
In general, I guess in high school, it was just a lot of really heavy depression and self-harm, and then just intense anxiety. So it just bounced back and forth, and I just never felt, I guess I never felt wanted or loved. Maybe that was it, when I try and think about it, because I was always chasing boys. I needed to feel that someone wanted me really bad, So that was a hard time. And then I was able to work through that. I had some PTSD from this, what my dad used to do, because it was every night from like 7 p.m. till whenever he got tired, I guess. I just remember being like pushed into a corner and screamed at essentially every night for hours. And that, I guess, fucked me up more than I thought, because then even after it ended, because he ended up apologizing, you know, stopped drinking as much, and which I appreciated. But after that, in high school, every night I would have panic attacks from about when the sun started going down, about 7 p.m. to like midnight, 11. And all through high school, and I never knew what it was. I just thought there's something wrong with me, you know? But it was until recently that I looked back, I was like, oh, my body is going through flashbacks. I just didn't know why, you know? And now I'm able to deal with the nighttime much better. It actually switched. Now I'm really nervous in the mornings. Yeah, but that's because when I was diagnosed with OCD, waking up is the hardest part, because all the thoughts just come at you the second you wake up.
How bad is your OCD?
Right now, I'm managing it. When I was first diagnosed, it was horrendous. Like the worst, I think the worst thing I've dealt with ever. And it's so confusing because people don't know what it is, and I didn't know what it was. Like you see like on TV, like, oh, it's like you're very particular, or you're very anal, or, you know, neurotic. You have to clean everything. You have to have everything in order. And, well, sometimes that's a symptom. That's not what it is at all. It's like your brain gets snapped a little bit and you get stuck on a loop. So, like, say you get a thought, like say you're with somebody and you see someone that you think is attractive and you go like, oh, that person's attractive. Then your brain will be like, what'd you say? You'll be like, nothing. I didn't say anything. And it'll be like, you thought they were attractive. And you'll be like, wait, what? And then it'll be like, you don't love your husband. You don't love anyone. You're not capable of loving anyone. You can't do this. You can't do monogamy, blah, 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 blah. And it doesn't fucking stop. Like, it just doesn't stop. It was like probably a year until I got diagnosed. And like the themes will switch. So like it attaches itself to whatever's most important to you usually. And it like bounced around. So which makes it really tricky, because then you're like, wait, is it OCD if it's, okay, now I'm not terrified of like relationship questions, but then all of a sudden I was terrified that I was going to commit suicide, because I was really depressed because of the OCD. You know, it felt like there's a vice lock on my head and it was just crushing it. And then I was terrified of that, and I didn't think it was OCD. I thought I was really just going to have to go kill myself, even though I didn't want to, you know, but like I was afraid part of me did, so I wouldn't have a choice. And then like I almost checked myself into a hospital. And then I was able to talk to some friends, good friends of mine, and realized it was OCD. It had just switched, because the very thought of it just sent me into like a panic. Like they call it like the tip of the spear of anxiety, OCD, because of how intense it is. And then some people have like harm OCD, where they're afraid that they're gonna like stab their best friend. And as like stupid as the thought is, like it becomes so obsessive you can't get your brain out of the loop, and it just tortures you indefinitely, essentially, you know, until like you learn how to work around it. And finally I had learned enough to be like, okay, I do have OCD. It's bouncing around to different topics, but I know this is what it is. And the like gold standard is exposure response prevention therapy, which is so shitty, because the only way to like get over the terrifying thought is to expose yourself to the thought and not react to it for like an extended period of time.
To force yourself to deal with what you don't want to deal with.
Yeah, to deal with it, but you're not even dealing with it in the fact that you're not like processing it. You're just like scaring,
Not reacting to it.
not reacting to it. You're also scaring the shit out of yourself. So like, say you're really afraid, like you're gonna jump off a building or whatever. So like an exposure would be like, okay, you're gonna go stand on a building and say, maybe I'll jump off, maybe I won't, and like be safe, obviously, but it won't feel safe. Or like even like with the harm OCD, you'll have to sit there with the thought and be like, I'm going to hurt the person I love the most. Then the anxiety will fucking shoot up like higher than it's ever shot up. Like you'll be crying and everything. And then just keep saying that same thought that's like traumatizing you. And eventually it comes down to a lesser level. And then you can move on from that exposure. And you have to do that a lot, like a lot. And I call it a monster. Like I write music. I have a band called Graves in the Bad Weather, and almost all our stuff is about mental health. But a lot of the songs I reference a monster, and like standing up and just staring at a monster that's just like blowing hot air in your face, and you just have to like stand still and just like endure it until like the temperature comes down, because that's what exposures are. Like there's no way around it. Like it's not like...
Is that monster your dad?
No, it's the OCD.
No, but does it represent your dad?
How do you mean?
Like you said he used to like yell at you in the corner.
Oh, well, the monster I'm referencing, like when I'm writing, isn't my dad. I mean, that used to be a monster, like when I was younger.
No, to a young child.
To a child, oh my God, yeah. Like when you're a kid and your parents are telling you something's wrong with you, like...
Or they're big and they're screaming at you in the corner.
Yeah, you're certain something...
That's a monster.
Well, and it convinces you something must be wrong with you. But I think that looks a little different than like... So like what real life trauma is and then what like mental disorder trauma is, I feel like they're different. You know what I mean? Because like... the mental stuff it's inside your head, you know what I mean? And you have to do these certain things to get over it. Like real life trauma, it affects you deeply and it affects who you are, but you handle it differently than you would like a mental disorder, I guess, if that makes sense.
Are there other things mental disorders you've dealt with?
Yeah, the other one is it was called depersonalization, derealization. That one kicked in when I was in my early 20s. So like I said, when I was in high school, I was really anxious. And there's something about anxiety, it's horrible, but it also like gives you a feeling of control. Like when you're worrying about something, not just general anxiety that lives in your body, but like when you're worried about something, if you're consciously worrying about it, it makes you feel like you'll be able to control whatever that is. So I was doing a lot of that, just like active worrying when I was like in my late teens, 20s. And one day I just woke up and I felt like I wasn't there. Like I felt like I was in a different plane of existence, and it freaked me out. Like it felt like vertigo. It felt like being in a video game, like when you're in a first person shooter or whatever, how like you see your hands but everything's like separate, because it's a separate world. Like I woke up and everything looked like that and felt like that, and it freaked me out. So I like changed my diet, like changed a bunch of things, and nothing helped. And then I just stayed like that for like a year or two. And I thought I had like lost my mind. Like I thought I was really like just gonna devolve into myself and just like disappear, because it makes you feel like you're leaving reality. Like your hands don't look like your hands, your voice doesn't sound like your voice. There were sometimes I would talk and my voice would scare me, like because it sounded like it was coming from like outside. And yeah, I had no idea what it was. I thought maybe it was like a demonic attack or something. I had no idea. And then one of my friends told me about depersonalization, what it is. And I was like, yeah, that's what I have. I feel like I'm dreaming all the time, and there's no reprieve from it. There's no escape from it. So she directed me to a website, and the number one thing it recommended was guided meditations, which I was like, okay, like that's not gonna work. Like that's too easy. So like I went so long without doing it. I just like was, just being miserable. And then one day I just finally caved. I was like, okay, I have nothing left to try. Like I have to do something. So I started doing the guided meditations twice a day. And after like a month, I noticed like I had 5 minutes where I didn't think about the fact that I felt like I wasn't there. And I was like, oh my God, that's huge progress when like your whole life has become one way, And then all of a sudden you had like a 5 minute reprieve. You're like, okay, I think this might be working. So I kept that up for, again, probably about a year. And after a year, I finally felt like normal again, like baseline normal. And it still like flares up sometimes. So like if I'm not like doing active rest or like guided meditations, or if I'm over worrying about things, I'll start to feel like I'm floating, floating away, like I'm not here. But then so basically I just have to remind myself, like ground myself, meditate. Like it's funny because I struggle so hard with consistency in my life, but like the only thing that keeps these like mental disorders at bay is being consistent and disciplined. And it's really hard to be disciplined.
Are you taking any medications or anything like that?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm taking an SSRI, and then I'm taking an antipsychotic that works as an antidepressant. So I'm not sure if the SSRI does anything. I was just doing whatever they told me when the OCD was at its worst.
Have you been diagnosed with, BPD or
No.
bipolar or schizophrenia, nothing like that?
No. I was afraid I had schizophrenia, but then I realized that was an OCD thing for a while. They thought I might have bipolar in high school, but they medicated me for it, and it went really bad. So they decided that that wasn't a thing that I'd have to deal with.
The medication helps?
Yeah, like I said, the SSRIs, I'm not sure how much it helps, but the antipsychotic one helped a lot with the depression. Yeah, because for a while I was just crying all the time, just super sad. I mean, that's been like a theme throughout my life, like in and out of like severe depression.
How old are you now?
I'm 32.
32. How has this impacted your adult life?
How has it impacted it?
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, in the past, I've had to leave work early because I couldn't like emotionally function. It doesn't happen a lot because I don't know, I feel like I can't like, not use it as an excuse, but like I just feel like a really strong like sense of like I have to get my shit done, you know what I mean? But when I objectively look at it, like I probably should have been on disability at some points. It can make my relationship really hard. I mean, my husband's wonderful and like really patient, but when the relationship OCD flares up, like it just makes me feel miserable about like and question everything like about relationships. So it can make that really hard. And I could see if I was with a more sensitive person that it could probably wreck a relationship. But like I said, my husband's he's really grounded and like patient.
That's great.
Yeah, no, it's really great. Yeah, he's awesome.
What do you, if you had your life to live over again, what would you have done differently? Anything?
To live my life over again?
Would you have done anything differently regarding all these things?
That's a great question.
Knowing what you know now?
Knowing what I know now. I probably wouldn't have been so hard on myself. with the OCD, I wouldn't have been so hard on myself because I would have known
What it was.
what it was. That there's not just something deeply wrong with me as like a human, you know. These thoughts are a part of a disorder.
That's the worst part, is just not knowing what you've got.
Oh, it's horrible because
It's like, there's something terribly wrong with me, but I don't know what it is.
yeah, it always reverts back to like, I'm broken. Something's very broken. And even if it is something that's broken that you can fix, like that's different than being like, no, I am just like innately a broken person.
Even if it's just like, I'm bipolar, and that was just a little episode.
Right.
But you're just crazy, you don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah. When you don't know why, you're like, oh, well, this is the end. This is it. Yeah.
Is there anyone else in your family that suffers from anything like this?
My dad had depression, and my mom, I think, does too. My mom has anxiety. Nobody that I know has OCD, which is weird because that's really genetic, you know? So either they're just not diagnosed or I'm the first. As far as the depersonalization, I know my mom felt that way once, like when she smoked weed as a teenager. And that was actually the first time I had ever felt it, was when I smoked weed. So I stay away from that now. That's a
Do you
no.
use any substances?
No, I smoke cigarettes. I guess that's a substance.
Yeah.
It's addictive. So no, I don't like to feel out of control. You know, it scares me. But yeah, I know depression runs in my family a lot.
What do you worry about most? What do you worry about now?
I worry about whether or not my life's gonna turn out the way I want it to. I know that's really vague. But I know, like, so I can do so many things to make my life the best it can be. So I can be disciplined, I can work hard at certain things, but it's the unknown that I stress out about, like the things I can't control, like opportunities or yeah, just opportunities and stuff. I stress out about that. And I try not to. I try to just like, you know, have faith and remember worrying about it doesn't give you more control over it, you know. But
I imagine having some of these disorders, I guess we'll call them, it almost feels like you're self-sabotaging yourself.
in what way?
Like OCD, if it flares up the wrong way the morning of a job interview, you're just not going to do well.
Yeah, that's scary. Yeah.
And it just comes out of, it's not something you can turn on or turn off.
No, that's 100% true. Yeah, that used to be something that terrified me. It doesn't scare me as much anymore, but having a mental illness or a mental disorder flare up on an important day.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember before I got married, I wasn't diagnosed with OCD yet, but I had the depersonalization, and I was so scared I was going to feel like I wasn't there on my wedding day. Like I was going to feel like out of it. And that bothered me for like a year or two before I even got married.
How many years have you been married?
Coming on 6, I think. Yeah, we've been together for, I think, 12.
And your husband understands what you're going through?
Yeah, as much as anyone who doesn't go through it can.
Do you have kids?
No
kids.
kids.
Would you want to have kids?
I don't know. It's scary. It's a scary thought because, you know, OCD makes everything scary, you know. I don't know if we could because I have a condition called IIH. It's idiopathic intracranial hypertension. So it's where there's kind of too much spinal fluid in my brain, so it pushes on my eyes. So there's a medicine I have to be on for that I don't know would be conducive to pregnancy, and same for my mental health medication. So that would be that's a huge I don't know, because I don't know if I could get off the meds I'm on, you know. Yeah, that's a question I get asked a lot, especially because I'm 32, and we've been married for a while. I just kind of leave that one up to God. Like, I don't know. If I get better, maybe. I mean, we play music a lot. That might be hard to do with a kid, but it's doable. I've seen people do it.
But it seems like these problems you have are kind of subdued somewhat now at this point of your life.
I know how to manage them, I guess, if that makes sense. So like a week or two ago, my OCD flared up really bad, and I had to just go outside and do exposures, and they're horrible, and I felt like I was dying, but then I kept doing it. And
What do you think causes the flare up like that?
one school of thought is that you should be doing exposures every day, and then you're much less likely to get triggered. I tend to do exposures till I feel better and then pretend it doesn't exist,
But isn't some of it just brain chemistry that's out of balance?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, part of your brain isn't working.
I've heard the serotonin. I don't know the details of it, but it's something to do with serotonin and OCD are connected.
Yeah, they say that. So that's why they prescribe SSRIs for OCD. They say it helps with a lot of people. It didn't take care of mine. It might be helping a little bit, but it didn't like fix it. I don't know exactly. I've seen pictures of like brain scans of like people that don't have OCD and people that do, and they're lit up in completely different ways. Like there's just weird shit going on in there. I'm not sure exactly what. I thought about doing like those brain mapping things and like trying to fix it. I don't know, like just experimental stuff. But I also get a little nervous to do that because then what if that goes wrong? I don't want another thing,
Leandra, what would you say is the most important lesson you've learned in all of this?
Be patient and have hope. That's something that's been on my mind a lot lately, is don't run into something bad and just assume it's going to be like that forever. Because I assume it's going to be like that forever most times. Even still, sometimes I do that. But I think it's really important to, just have hope. Because things can and do change, you know what I mean? Sometimes it takes you taking action, but that's still a way of change. You just have to be consistent, I guess, and keep learning.
All right. Leandra, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
I wish you lots of luck.
Thanks.
Thanks.